All right, friends, happy Saturday. Another one in the books, and that means week 12 college football is upon us. We got a lot to break down. We got big time matchups, not big time, even for me to say matchups, but for the DFS slate, we do not care. We need to know who to put in our lineups, where the leverage is going to be, and everything else that the tools are going to give us. Luckily, you're in business. I'm Ben Rasa. Matt Gajewski joins me. We are ready to rock. We are already preparing for straight bananas on this slate. Sir, could get a little dangerous in the next hour.
That's how it always goes. Let's
Yeah.
hope it's a semi-clear injury report. I think this is a better DFS day than real life day, so happy you guys are all with us.
Yes.
Hopefully the DFS slate spices up not the best early slate. We got Tennessee, Georgia tonight, but until then it's a little lackluster.
It's not the best. Some big spreads. A lot of teams just kind of trying to avoid the landmine. But you mentioned there's a lot of wrinkles to the DFS slate. And let's start with what we always like to get to, and that is quarterback situations from Pitt to Utah, everything in between, injuries. What exactly are we waiting for, and what do we know?
I don't think we're waiting for anything. At
Okay.
least I say that now. Someone's probably going to pop up, but there's not very many questionable pieces at this point. We got a lot of news already this morning. So I don't think there's too much we're just waiting on at this point. Some news will probably pop, but I'm not watching anything specific really right now.
In terms of the news we kind of got this morning, was anything surprising, or was it just confirmation of what you were kind of expecting?
Not really surprising for the slate. I thought Holstein was going to play, but their team total is about as low as it's been all year, so he wasn't someone you were getting a lot of anyway. Now with Yarnell taking over for Pitt, you're going to get zero. And then Utah, I was surprised that we were going to see Isaac Wilson warm up, but that also doesn't matter. I think for FanDuel, Brady Cook playing makes a little bit of a difference, but I think that guy's just, he's going to try to play, and there's a good chance he doesn't finish the game, even though he's just like a warrior to even step on the field today. But there's just a ton of risk with him. So all three of the quarterback situations, not that impactful for DFS. I guess Garrett Green playing, but we kind of expected that already. So not anything really to add there.
No doubt about it. And like you said, I'm sure some things will pop up, but I'm glad you guys are with us. You guys know the drill. Hopefully, you're here all the time, but maybe you just stumbled upon Stokastic for the first time. And if you have, welcome to our channel, 100,000 strong. If you want to support us, hit the like button, subscribe to this very channel. Let's get into it. Let's start with quarterback as we always do. You mentioned, of course, there's going to be a lot of different ways that you can play this. And our good friend Riley Leonard graces us once again. I think he's been on every slate. I haven't remembered a single time where he's really been that guy, but he grades out well. He's going to be popular. Notre Dame at home shouldn't have much trouble, but where do you have him in your quarterback rankings?
He needs to be high. The quarterback pricing is pretty tight on this slate, but Leonard just has so many paths to getting there that it doesn't really matter at this point. I do kind of question the ceiling in a game like this. Notre Dame has taken their foot off the gas, and some of his lower designed rush attempt games come when they're in these blowout victories. But he still has like explosive rushing ability. He leads the team in rushing. He's over 6 yards per carry. And what he gives you through the air is kind of a bonus. The only other wrinkle is that he's a lot more expensive than he previously was. So I do view him as sort of like a safer play, but kind of a limited ceiling because of the game Notre Dame projects to play on today's slate. A lot of this will probably come through the run game with the running backs if they actually achieve this team total or eclipse it.
Cash viable?
I think he's cash viable. I would rather save the salary, but this is a very, very tight slate. And that's not to say there's not options you can get to in values to play, but they all project similarly. So actually choosing the right ones is tough. So I think that also stems to the quarterback position. My preference right now is to go down a little bit, play guys like Garrett Green, Shug, Kevin Jennings, but you can absolutely build lineups just fine with Riley Leonard. Right now, he's my third most owned QB on DraftKings.
You mentioned the 7K range specifically is pretty loaded. Green is there. Jennings is a big favorite against Boston College. Shug, Drew Aller is also there. And Mendoza for Cal is a guy that I want to specifically ask you about. Are those guys kind of on the next tier, or all these guys in the 7K range somewhat interchangeable in your mind?
Green is just fine. He's better than Markiel in the sense that they don't change their offense at all. Markiel had like the same amount of rush attempts, but Green is just a lot more efficient. We're talking like 3 extra yards per carry on the ground, and Baylor's defense is awful. So Green, he's mispriced. I have him and Shug as my two most owned quarterbacks, tied between the two of them. The only real worry with Shug today is that they blow Stanford out and most of it comes in the ground. We'll talk about Isaac Brown later, but a healthy amount of him. But I think you do want to play the Shug side with some stacks. It's narrower now that they've had some guys redshirt and get injured. I think those are the two best ones. Jennings is a little more volatile. And I just say that as like a little bit. He's right there as well, just projects slightly worse price adjusted. And I think you can honestly argue the ceiling is higher with Jennings just because of the team total over Boston College, who lost their starting quarterback to the transfer portal as well. Once you get down there a little bit, I think Mendoza carries a little bit more risk, largely just because he doesn't run as much as Green or Jennings. But he's sort of turned the corner in terms of efficiency. Syracuse's defense is really bad. The problem is Syracuse's defense is really bad against the run. I'm not sure they're great in their secondary, but they have a very, very clear weakness. This is a run funnel defense. And every time Jaden Ott steps on the field, whether he's hurt or not, Cal is just basically going to slam him into the back of the O-line 20 times. So I do have some concerns about game environment stuff, matchup stuff with Mendoza, which puts him just a little bit of a tier behind Green, Shug, and Jennings, in my opinion.
One last guy, and then we can go up to the micro 8K range. There's been a little change out west at USC. Moss sits down, Maeva comes in. Does that do anything for you in terms of how you want to allocate your salary?
On DraftKings, I think he's a pretty neutral play. On FanDuel, he is egregiously cheap, and he makes like everything work if you want to play him on FanDuel. A really weird signal caller compared to like Miller Moss. This guy, he didn't even start the whole year at UNLV last year, and he was almost the country's leader in turnover-worthy plays. He's like your Jameis Winston style gunslinger. He can run, but he doesn't do it very much. So I'm not really sure what he's going to give you, especially stepping up in competition when you're towards the top of the country in turnover-worthy plays, and you're playing in the Mountain West. What is the leash like on this guy? We truly don't know. Miller Moss didn't play bad. He wasn't good either, but I mean, there's a lot of downside with Maeva that the other guys just don't have, but there's upside as well. I'm not really sure what to do with him on DraftKings. I'm going to be below 10%, somewhere between 10 and 5. I'm not 100% sure yet. It's really on FanDuel where he's in the 5Ks where you have to make a decision because he's so cheap over there.
Couple more guys, and then we'll talk a little more about FanDuel. In this 8K range, you've got Cade Klubnik, who's been on the slate a lot. They're double-digit favorites on the road at Pitt, who plays really fast. Then you've got Sawyer Robertson. That game's a pseudo pick'em in Morgantown. Green's on the other side. He's got some dual threat ability. Are these guys tournament plays for you? You're Xing them out, just standard allocation. They look like they're not going to be overly popular.
No, they're just good tournament plays, slightly behind some of the others in price adjustment for salary, like projection compared to price. But they're right there. Klubnik, the totals come down in that game, but it has sort of been neutralized by them taking extra money against the spread because Yarnell's starting. So I still think you can use him. He's running a lot more than he did last year, which is completely fine. Robertson gets to play the West Virginia secondary, which is constantly just the gift that keeps on giving. If you want to target that matchup, absolutely fine. He just comes in a little bit worse projection-wise compared to some of the guys we already talked about, but I have no issues using him.
Last guy, I think we have to mention him. He's the most expensive player, and that's Shedeur. Obviously, they get a really good matchup. They need these wins, can't avoid any slip-ups, and I really don't think they're going to slip up here. We know what he can do. It's pretty simple. Is it just too expensive on a day that might be a little starved for value, or can you pay up for a Colorado stack?
You could pay up. I think it's dicey today. This is like the lowest team total, maybe that Colorado's had all season. I would have to really go back and check that. But yeah, and the other thing is Utah got back a lot of their defenders. They're going to be lifeless on offense, more than likely. But the defense is returning a lot of players right now. I can't pull it up right now. I have to update projections, but we talked about this on Betting You. It's kind of why they were in their last game. Also think that's partially why the total's so low. It's going to be a very slow, inept offense on the other side, but then this Utah defense might be a little better than we think, especially with the guys they got back.
Appreciate the super chat. Friend of the show, Chris Albers, said you're the best in the biz. Appreciate it. I'm hiding in the bathroom at work. Okay.
Go, Chris. Let's go.
because priorities. That's what we're talking about. Favorite GPT plays: one QB, one running back, and one wide receiver. All right, here we go. I'm gonna rattle a couple off for you. One,
I paused it for the super chat. I can help out too.
okay. I like that. I mean, he's not going to be super sneaky, but Kevin Jennings to me has every opportunity to just run wild at home. They need some style points. I think they just absolutely maul BC. So I'll go him for quarterback.
I'm gonna go Lagway.
Ooh, that's a good one. He does return a competitive game against LSU. All right, let's see. Running back. I'm gonna go Woody Marks.
I like Woody Marks. Well, I mean, we'll get to running back,
Yeah, we'll get there in depth, but I'll just throw
and
that out there.
yeah, for sure. Running back is really, really hard because there's 2 to 3 extremely clear guys, and I think you're probably going to get a pretty good ownership. I guess it's going to be a lot of leverage regardless of who you go. Really off the board, I'm going to go Jaden Blue for Texas. Quintravion Weisner got himself in trouble last week when really early in the game, I believe it was his second carry. And, sometimes you get stuffed in the backfield. And the best thing to do is just take your 2 yard loss, get what you can, live to fight another day. Instead of doing that, he turns his back to the defense, runs the opposite direction, takes like a 20-yard loss and hit the bench. I don't think he would have came back in the game unless like they murdered Florida. So I think that's partially why he came back in the game. But I mean, they benched Jaden Blue. There's a long precedent of them punishing players for doing really stupid stuff. For GPPs, if you're playing the large stuff, I think the Jaden Blue angle is kind of interesting today. He's going to be like 2%.
Final one, wide receiver. Obviously, there's a ton of options, and we'll dig in depth. I'm going to give a little love to Antonio Williams. He's not going to be popular. I think that Clemson could really hang a lot of points today. So 5,900, I think you could do worse than that.
I have no idea where these receivers are going to be. I love the Antonio Williams call. I'm going to say Roderick Daniels for SMU. We just got news that Jake Bailey is out. We had him projected in. That's what I'm fixing on the back end right now. They already lost Romello Brinson. They already lost RJ Maryland. This is a very condensed receiving core. Nice cheap attachment to Kevin Jennings. And I think he's probably going to be like 5% owned.
SMU, I'm telling you, but appreciate that. All right, I'm going to move back to quarterbacks on FanDuel while you're updating. We'll see what we got. Obviously, the thing that stands out the most, we already talked about it, but it's worth repeating. Jaden Maeva over there is $5,200. We have him projected right around 50% owned, and it seems like he should be. Just given the cost, you're allowed to really allocate elsewhere, and that can get you to some of these 10K options of the Kevin Jennings of the world. Sawyer Robertson's up there. Klubnik. Will Howard is on the slate. Dylan Gabriel is on the slate. Rocco Becht is on the slate over there. Those are 3 names that we obviously haven't talked about that are probably going to factor in. The only other guy, I shouldn't say only other, but the other guy that I'm definitely going to ask you about is Lenore Sellers. He's over there for South Carolina. He's 8,700. Their offense is insane. You talk about their offensive line. When I say insane, I don't mean in a good way. Offensive line issues, but he can really move. Is that something you're entertaining on FanDuel?
Yeah, I have about 20% of him because of price. A lot of my FanDuel lineups kind of just look exactly like you said, one cheap QB, one expensive QB. And a lot of them, it's Maeva and then an absolute star. There's more that are like Garrett Green and Lenore Sellers together. So it's kind of just how you want to build your lineup altogether. I think Sellers is fine if you decide to play like Dylan Sampson or one of the other stud running backs, something like that.
What about your boy Avery Johnson? He's over there, draws the Sun Devils, 9,600. He's kind of in no man's land. Is that a stack that you might get to, or even just using him kind of in a skinny or naked?
He's not a strong price adjusted value today because of the Maeva stuff, the Sellers stuff, but he is a ceiling. We've seen it plenty of times. He's the kind of guy I would use as like a sprinkling in GPPs if you're running 150 or something.
And then really, I think this is more of a FanDuel question today. It'll come into play maybe here and there on both sides, but more so with Ohio State, Oregon to a lesser extent. There are some teams, Drew Aller would qualify. You're talking about 4 touchdown favorites for some of these Big Ten teams, particularly Ohio State and Penn State. Are you adjusting what you expect workload-wise from the quarterbacks in terms of Indiana's on deck, we've got bigger things going on? Or do you think they can have 6 touchdowns in the first half and we call it a day?
6 is probably a little rich for Penn State. I mean, we just have a big sample of them. I mean, when they played UCLA, only 3 of their defenders even hit 50% of the snaps. They just don't care when they're winning big games about the spread. So yeah, there's a ton of inherent risk with Penn State. And I think the blowout stuff is real with them compared to other teams because that UCLA game wasn't even really that close.
It's true. Or you're either frozen or I'm frozen, but I'm gonna pretend.
I don't think I can run the Sims while I'm on the stream, man. This is the first. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly.
Okay.
It looked
Yeah,
like you were miming. It was quite a scene. Um,
this is definitely me running the Sims on the back end, slowing my computer way the hell down.
we'll work through it. Yeah, no, I heard you loud and clear on both points
Okay,
too,
that's good at
because
least.
we have
Man of
seen
the people.
we have seen Penn State do this time and time again. Just gear down. That's why they haven't been covering these large spreads all year, and obviously it hurts uh, some of the upside for them. We'll talk about their running backs and whatnot in a minute. Is there anything else for quarterback though? To me, I think we've got this pretty tidied up.
Yeah, you'd have to name them. I just can't look at the board right now.
No, I mean I'm like I said, certainly it's perfect time to always mention if you want to see the full board and the tools and the sims and everything we've got going on, you know where to find it. It's in the description. We'll talk about how to get that with link join later, but it's the best in the business. But no, just looking at what I have up and just I think we've got this pretty covered. You've got particularly on FanDuel, Maeva is sucking up a ton of ownership and Garrett Green probably 1B, and then from there you have a litany of tournament options, and that's the way it should be. That's the way I think it's going to be. So you have a lot of potential GPP stacks today, but we're going to need to know what to do with the backfield as well. And let's just get right into it. Like I said, we're going to talk about some fun deals we've got going on, not just for college football, by the way, big day all around, but with running back. Isaac Brown is just leaping off the page. Is that warranted in your mind? Is that how you're playing it?
Yeah, he's too cheap for his workload right now. I believe he's at least 19 touches in 3 or 4 games. It's going to be really hard for me to reference like stats and data while I'm running the sim, so I apologize if this diminishes the content of Live Before Lock, but he was an awesome price-adjusted projection, the single best play in the slate, first guy in your lineups. Hopefully that's just evidence enough.
Yeah, I mean, he's got not only a handful of reception in all these games, but 20, 18, and 20 carries in 3 of his 4 games. The only game that was an outlier was the Miami game, but in that game, he actually had 6 receptions. So it's just a key component of this offense. He should be busy. But then you got Mekhi Hughes. That's a team that we don't talk about a lot. I think, no offense to Navy, I think the dream may end today. I think Tulane's going to take them out. And it might be Hughes really busy. He's another one with a massive workload. He had 3 of his last 4 games with 27 or more carries on the ground. Is that the type of workload we could see once again here?
Yeah, these are the 2 best cash game plays. If you're playing small field, they're the first guys in your lineups. There's not very much risk with Mekhi Hughes. He's not the best pass catcher. Occasionally they'll use other guys in that role, but as 7-point favorites, you're not really expecting them to be in very many of those situations. So they're the top 2 running backs on the slate. It's not particularly close. First 2 guys in for cash.
What do you do with the Penn State backfield? So this is a situation that's always somewhat fluid. It does seem, correct me if I'm wrong, that both of them will be ready to go. But price-wise, you've got Allen almost $2,000 cheaper. Does that move him ahead of Singleton? And is Singleton, again, he's got a Q tag, but then it looks like he's good to go.
Yeah, they did this one other game this year, same exact situation, and Singleton didn't log a single snap, warmed up, Q tag, looked like he was going to play. So Penn State will definitely do that. I wish it was as simple as he's warming up, he's in the clear, but he's not. Katron is by far the safer play, and if you do decide to use him in your lineups, you do have upside for him to handle like 20 plus touches, and Singleton not even see the field. Now this could go the other way, and it could be the same 50-50 split, but I don't think you can play Singleton at all in this game. Just maybe you're really risk tolerant and you want to take a shot. I just don't see any upside. At best, he's in a timeshare with Katron. At worst, he's not going to see the field.
Great question from chat, going back to Louisville for 1 second about Maurice Turner possibly returning. We haven't seen him in a long time. Does that have any impact on Brown, or do you think that just he competes for maybe some of the secondary carries?
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
He may have already returned. I can't remember. They've had multiple backs in and out.
Yeah, I don't think he's played in since the very beginning of the year. But again, I'm with you. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think Brown's just got an absolute workload secure today in a great spot. So does Phil Maffa. Talked about Klubnik. I mentioned Antonio Williams, but there's also Clemson's ground game, and Maffa, of course, leads that. He's $7,300 against Pitt. The tempo will be good. The touchdown equity's got to be sky high. He's another one. Just digging into his workload a little bit, it's certainly been there. 30 carries against Louisville in the loss. I don't know what that was. 26 more against the Hokies last week for 128. I mean, you got to expect him to be busy once again.
The only time they take their foot off the gas is when they're up by like 21 or more points. Pitt's still within striking range for the spread, where you would think Maffa is pushing 25, 30 carries. If we didn't have such egregious pricings on Mekhi Hughes and Isaac Brown, he would be towards the top of the rankings. But I still think you could use him like as your third running back in cash if you wanted to. He's not, it's a little less clear for that third position, but he's by all means an amazing play on the slate.
You mentioned some of the information with SMU. Does it affect Rashard Smith in this backfield? He's another piece of the puzzle. What do you think his role looks like? And again, an objectively good spot.
He's hard to parse. He has two straight games of at least 23 carries, but prior to that, they'd been mixing in like Roderick Daniels. They'd been using, I guess, just multiple backs. And I think it might have been an injury we weren't really hearing a lot about because early in the year he had that role and then they eased off and then they went right back to him. Now with two games under his belt, I think you're looking at like 25 to 30 carries. They maybe decide to ease off a little bit, but he's got to do something if they get up to that point in the game anyway.
We talk about the Texas backfield pretty much every week. A lot of times it was Wisner really climbing the ranks and blue fumble issues, blah, blah, blah. What's the status of that backfield in your opinion?
Well, I thought Wisner had himself a good opportunity till he decided to turn his back to the defense and run backwards 14 yards and get benched. So I don't know where this stands. You might see more Jarrett Gibson. This is just volatile. I took a few shots on both of the Texas backs because of this. I have no feel for where this is going. They both have made egregious mistakes that have gotten themselves benched.
Yeah, that could be a slight issue, and it definitely seems like one of those volatile ones. You mentioned Lagway. Why not talk about the Florida backs? Do you think that they can have any success against LSU? And if so, is there one guy that could consolidate enough volume to keep him relevant?
I think Montrell Johnson's going to return in this game. Big game for him. He's from Louisiana, obviously started his career at Louisiana with Napier. They're playing Louisiana State, so this is important to him. Jacoby Jackson and Jaden Baugh formed a 50-50 committee, exactly 19 carries apiece in their last game. I think this just could be as bad as split three ways right down the middle. Probably not going to play a Florida back. Outside of, I'm running 150, so when I did run the Sims, I got sprinklings of Baugh and Jacoby Jackson. That's just because they're 3,500 and 3,400.
Last couple guys that I just want to mention. One, are you paying up for Desmond Reed?
No.
Okay. Two, you mentioned that maybe the way to attack Syracuse might be on the ground. Are you playing Jaden Ott?
I did get some Jaden Ott.
Okay.
He's just so frustrating, man.
Yes.
He won't sit down and get healthy. He's averaging like 2 yards a carry. He's having an atrocious season, and I don't think he's an atrocious player. And I respect it, man. He's a warrior. He wants to go out there and play. He just can't play. So I don't know if he got healthier over the last week. By all means, like you cannot possibly drop a better P5 matchup for him unless you're playing Purdue. This is as easy as it's going to get. If Jaden Ott is even remotely healthy, he's not going to have a better matchup all year. So yeah, and plus the other thing is this Cal coaching staff, regardless of the efficiency from Thomas, as soon as Ott can even put his pads on, it's just boom, right back to his 20 carries. So, I mean, I think throwing darts on him is fine. I would put him in a tier below Maffa and certainly the cheaper backs we talked about, Hughes. But he's there for tournaments. I think he's actually a pretty good tournament play. Based on role, I don't know about the injury stuff.
Playing any Durham for LSU?
He's another guy in the same exact situation,
Yep,
playing through injury. Yeah. He's a good callback. Yeah, I don't really think you can play a lot of Durham right now. Josh Williams came right back. Had a pretty good role, and I just don't know how to project the carry counts for these two guys right now. There's information that we just don't have.
No doubt about it. Let's move on to FanDuel. Like I said, I think we covered it. The only other guy that I really was thinking about was LaQuint Allen on the other side of the Cal game.
LaQuint Allen has one of the most insane workloads in the country. The two backups are hurt. They're using a converted tight end as their change of pace back right now. I mean, he is an excellent role. The only thing you really question is efficiency with him. There's certainly guys in better spots, but I mean, he is the best workload maybe in college football right now.
Go to FanDuel, and it's a lot of the same. Brashard Smith is up there in ownership, Woody Marks, Phil Maffa, but there are a couple new guys that we definitely need to talk about, and one of them is expensive in Scatabo. You've got him, you've got Giddens for Kansas State. Are these guys popping up in terms of your exposures? What do you make of the matchups for each of them in the Big 12?
Both awesome plays on this slate. Scatabo, I think, is being underprojected a little bit because of the injury. I don't think there's really much risk in this workload for him. They are underdogs, but he's a fantastic pass catcher, runs a route on nearly every drop back. Giddens might be at slightly more risk than Scatabo, but it's reflected in price. He's 9,200, not 10.6. They sort of took Giddens out of the game late in their last contest in favor of Edwards, just trying to get a spark in their offense. It didn't work. Giddens has an awesome role over the course of the season. I think there's just maybe a little bit more risk with him, but he's still my second most owned back on FanDuel. Scatabo is my fifth. I think the biggest difference between FanDuel and DraftKings is we got the ETN injury on the FanDuel main slate. It's on the DraftKings night slate, so we don't talk about it there. But yeah, we got bell cow Nate Frazier at 6.1K on FanDuel. He should be among your most owned running backs with Trevor Etienne out.
Yeah, that was where I was going next. He obviously should be busy against Tennessee. What else do we got here? Not a lot different. Oh, well, let me ask about the game of the day. Do you think that Dylan Sampson can run against Georgia's front?
Yeah, I do. I don't know with the same success that he's been having recently, but Georgia's defense has not been what it used to be.
This is more of a lineup question, but I think it's a good one. If you wanted to really stack Clemson, are you okay putting Moffitt into the Club Nick stacks?
I don't love it, but I'm not going to limit it.
That's fair. Let's see what else we got. Just looking for names that we haven't mentioned. Bryson Washington. The problem I have with him, West Virginia's secondary is the extreme issue. But do you think that Washington could have any role on the ground?
Yeah, he's sort of consolidated this backfield. They've run hot hand at times this year, which leads me to be a little nervous. Like I'd rather just play like Giddens or Brashard Smith at similar price tags, Maffa for sure. But sprinkling him into a set of lineups does make some sense to me. I have a little bit, 2%.
What about, we didn't really talk about Oregon. I mentioned Gabriel briefly. Does Jordan James just not really fit into the slate, or do you think there's something there?
He's hurt. So last game he had 7 carries and they decided to go to Noah Whittington. There's just risk of that happening again.
And what else do we've got? I think we're in pretty good shape at running back. You know what? Our old friend, he gets a shout out because he's been on the show for years. Raheem Sanders, our guy against Mizzou. He's 9,400 over there on FanDuel. That's going to be an interesting game. How do you think it really plays out? Do you think that he could have a prominent role?
Absolutely. I think he should have a prominent role. Attaway's been playing a little bit more as the change of pace. This game is really volatile on FanDuel. It's kind of interesting to play over there. Brady Cook elevates the ceiling hypothetically. You just have to guess at his health because if he's out there on one leg, the spread's probably correct. But if you get full-time Brady Cook, like I would be really interested in betting Mizzou. I might just do that live. Watch Missouri's first drive. This doesn't help you for DFS, so I'm sorry. It's extremely hard to play. But yeah, Raheem Sanders is an awesome role. I don't really respect Missouri's defense. And the game might have like a better chance of scoring than we think, depending on the Brady Cook status.
I wanted to ask you this before, and there's no good time to ask this, so I'll just ask you right now. Do you have any share of any Purdue player at all?
No.
Poor Purdue. I thought Mock would be. Okay, let's get back to reality. I mentioned, and believe me, we got plenty more to get to in the college football streets, but there's also college basketball going on, the NBA. And how about at MSG tonight? Maybe I'll go down. MMA on fire tonight. I've seen, feel like every fighter, but I don't think I've ever seen John Jones fight, maybe once. So I'm very excited to see this. It's a great card. If you're thinking about playing with these giant prize pools, we are running a special, the dollar special with the code BONES, MMA DFS core package, all the tools we've been referencing for the football shows and the basketball shows and whatever you're watching, just turned to MMA. It's that simple. The package will renew, obviously at the full price, but get on in there. If you're going to build, it is absolutely worth it. That link is below. Use that code, save yourself some money, and hopefully turn that dollar into an absolutely fire investment if you connect the dots in a large field tournament. So just wanted to make sure I got that in there. Now, let's go to wide receiver. Let's see what we've got on the docket here. My first thought about wide receiver was it seems like it's somewhat spread out in terms of there's not a guy like Isaac Brown or something like that. Is that your read on it, that you could go a lot of different direction and there's no obvious plays?
Yes, it's really hard to pick wide receivers today.
So with that in mind, a couple guys from Louisville stand out. Ja'Cory Brooks, Chris Bell is a pay down option. Then you've got is Jimmy Horn, our friend who slipped on the tortilla, is he out today?
Yeah, he just got ruled out on the show.
Okay. So you've
I
got
think a lot of
Shepard
people expected it, but it's official now.
I'm sure these guys were playable already, but I assume that just furthers the need for potential Shepard and Hunter exposure.
Yes.
And then what do you do with Tyler Warren? He's $7,200. He's got Purdue on the other side, who somehow factors into the show more than they should. Is he someone that's cash viable? Is he someone that you're going to allocate a healthy amount to?
Yeah, I love Tyler Warren. He's their only good player on offense. I guess he's their only real difference maker. I like the Penn State backs. I'll give him that. And Aller's been fine under this new offensive coordinator, Kotelnicki. Penn State just doesn't try when they're winning in games. It's hard to play any of them. I think by far the best option is Tyler Warren. He's the only guy that can catch passes on this team.
Does that mean you're not looking to entertain a pay down Wallace?
I played a little bit of Wallace. Right now, Warren is my third highest owned pass catcher. Let's see where Wallace is. We have to search him. So in the Sims, I rarely get this many wide receivers running 150. I got 37 different wide receivers today.
Yeah, it just shows. I'm not surprised.
I got 7% Wallace. There's so many. Wide receiver price adjusted is so narrow this week.
It's crazy. There seems to be a lot of pay down options as well. Just looking at the ownership, you're not going to be starved for a cheapie or two if you want to. But then there's guys in this weird range. Jackson Meeks, $6,200 for Syracuse. Andrew Armstrong, $6,900 for Arkansas. Pena, also for Syracuse. We didn't really talk about McCord. I guess we could, but are you getting to the pass catchers for the Orange?
A little bit. I actually did get a tiny amount of McCord, like 5%-ish. The receivers are all so good because they have ridiculous PPR upside on a site like DraftKings. Meeks, Gadsden, Pena. This team is throwing like 46 times per game. So you have so much just raw PPR upside, and then if they actually move the ball, it's not the best matchup for them. Cal's defense has been decent this year, and they're significant underdogs, 10 points. But yeah, I mean, they have such good floors, like these guys in like cash-style tournaments. I think Meeks is my favorite. He's just so awesome and talented. He's moving ahead of Pena and Gadsden. Finally, they were using him in like a 50% route share. He's finally been up above 90. He's an awesome play.
Any interest on the other? We've talked about the Louisville-Stanford game quite a bit, but I'd say all of it has been on the Louisville side. Is there anyone on Stanford on the outside that you're getting to in maybe like a run back situation?
No.
Fair enough.
You could play like a little bit Alec Ayomanor, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him a little bit as well. I'm just looking. I mean, again, it's pretty condensed with some of these teams. You've got a couple guys for Syracuse, a couple guys for Louisville, like 8 Colorado wide receivers. What do you do? We talked about Maeva, and he's going to be more popular on FanDuel, of course. Is it Lemon? Is it somebody else? Like, what do you do if you want to stack him?
Get out your dice, roll them, and play whoever you think is best. I prefer using Hudson and Lane. Lemon is in there too. I mean, it's just so spread. None of these guys have full routes. No one's averaging more than 5.5 targets per game over their last 4. Actually, excuse me, Lemon's at 8. over their last four, and then no one else is above five. Just really dicey situation with USC now taking on a quarterback. They also might change their pass rate. Maeve is way more mobile than Moss, so that's another unknown.
Any love for the Cal wide receivers? Say you're entertaining Mendoza.
They usually are not going to use anyone above 50% of the routes. That's been a trademark of them all year. The only thing that's changed is they got back Tobias Merriweather and Kyon Grays in their last game. Those were the two crown jewels of their transfer class, two former four stars. Grays from Ohio State, Merriweather from Notre Dame. In their first game back, Grays was at about a 15% route share, uninvolved. Merriweather was at 52% of the routes, but he had 10 targets. So if they do decide to bring someone up in terms of routes, I think it's Merriweather. The problem is they just preemptively put him at 4,800. So this is almost an impossible team to play. It's another reason why Mendoza is just tricky. The best path to winning this game is slamming Ott into the back of the O-line. Even if they do that, Syracuse is so bad up front. And then who do you stack Mendoza with? You're not getting a discount on Merriweather, and no one else plays over 50% of the snaps. It's just really tricky.
Other than that, like I said, you have a lot of the pay down options. I don't see much else out there. You got, again, I'm always fascinated. I guess this is with Texas. It just seems like none of their wide receivers ever pop up. Bond is there, Helm is there, but that's about it. And neither of them are jumping off the page.
Yeah, Helm is like a safe play. He's on the field a lot, falls down immediately when he catches the ball, doesn't really do anything. I'd probably just take shots on either Bond or go all the way down to their young receivers, Wingo and Moore. They've been playing more recently, partially because Jonte Cook left the team. But Texas has been in a lot of blowouts this year. In the rare instances we've seen them in competitive games, players like Silas Bolden barely touch the field, and that extra route share goes to Wingo, goes to Moore. You could throw darts on them. There's a lot of receivers that sort of fit that mold today, too. Like Clemson has players like that. I mean, it's gonna be tricky. You're gonna have to throw some darts at players. If you feel good about one of them, I think you could make a stand. But right now, my approach has been to be relatively spread at wide receiver, correlate with my quarterbacks, and that's about it, man. I don't have anyone above 29% in my portfolio. And only Ja'Cory Brooks is that player, and he's the only one above 20%. And I didn't really do anything special. There are a couple players I limited, but they're like the Bo Collinses of the world. I wasn't getting that much Bo Collins to begin with.
It just seems like most of these teams it's a very, very difficult, uh, route tree or whatever you want to call it, target share for these outside guys. You're rolling the dice on a lot of them. We talked about this at the beginning, but I think it deserves a second look. What do you do with SMU on the outside, whether you're playing Jennings or not? Is there a priority order with some of these guys missing? And is it good enough to get to maybe multiple SMU pass catchers?
You could play multiple. Jennings has shown that kind of ceiling. Daniels is one, Smith is two, Moochie Dixon's probably three, Hibner, the tight end, is probably four. None of them are expensive. I'm fine playing some SMU pass catchers.
Yeah, and it does feel like today's kind of you take your shots at wide receiver. You've got good options at running back. TJ Moore, good piece to Klubnik stacks. Yeah, but we talked about the volatility it's just tough.
If you're playing Klubnik, I'd play him.
No, I'm fine with it. It's just there's not a lot of security with any of these guys. Let's go to FanDuel and see what we can muster up over there. Yeah, we got Travis Hunter. We got some new additions over there. These guys always pop up when they're on the slate, and who I'm referring to is Noel and Higgins. You've got the Iowa State guys on the outside. Both are going to be popular. Maybe you just take both of them and roll back. Like, I'm sure you could do that. What are your thoughts on the ISU pass catchers?
I'm trying to play them as one-offs unless they're with Beck, then I'm okay playing them both. The target share is just so narrow between these guys, especially since Brahmer went down. I mean, Becht has just regressed the last two games efficiency-wise. They're still in a pretty good spot in this game, but it's no longer like the layup offense. Their O-line is horrible, so if Beck can't get the ball out quickly to these guys, it's torpedoed their entire offense. I think there's just maybe a little more risk than we thought early in the year with these players, but it's not them individually. It's mostly just systemic offensive line problems.
Do you feel the same way about the alpha wide receivers as we did with Will Howard, guys like that? I'm referring, of course, to Jeremiah Smith, Ibuka. How much did they really need to be on the field and involved today remains to be seen, but they're still elite playmakers in a dream matchup.
Yeah, they're a little bit safer, I think, than last week, just because instead of 38-point favorites, they are 28.
Yeah.
So you can use them, I think, with confidence in this matchup. Routes should just be better for them in a spot like this compared to their last game.
We talked about Frazier, and that was a product of ETN sitting. But I do, first of all, and actually, my man Mike just dropped the links in chat. If you're looking for more on the Discord side and betting, hop into those links, join the marketplace, get in our Discords, and have some fun. I like Georgia tonight. I think that they're going to handle them, and I think that Carson Beck is going to play well. If he does, somebody on the outside is going to need to step up. Maybe Lovett, maybe one of these other dudes, Arian Smith, maybe. What do you make of Georgia's pass catchers?
Very risky. They rotate 4 wide receivers and 3 tight ends. I think Lovett's probably your number 1, but it's dicey, man. I don't feel great about it.
You like them tonight, just in the game?
I do. Waiting on some Iamaleava last second stuff shenanigans, but I think he's going to be out there.
I don't really care.
Yeah, it's a great real life game, but obviously because of the playoff implications, it's tough to bet. Georgia has played a far more difficult strength of schedule than Tennessee.
Georgia? Go ahead.
I have Tennessee questions like at a lot of different position groups. I still don't think their secondary has been fully tested. They're using 7 offensive linemen every game. I don't know, man. Iamaleava has been way up and down.
You know what I don't understand? Georgia, you know when Georgia's last home game was?
I don't know. I'm guessing it wasn't recently.
It's been over a month. And Tennessee.
Didn't they play a neutral?
Yeah, they were in Jacksonville against Florida. And then Tennessee's been living at home for the past month. Not that that's the end all be all, but I was just really surprised that Georgia finally gets home. I wanted to see who the hell Gaston Moore was. Apparently that was the backup quarterback. We're not going to see that. Nico's going to be out there, and he's going to be taught a lesson in swift justice between the hedges. I like Georgia tonight. Doesn't translate great for DFS purposes. What else do we have here? Honestly, not a ton. What's going on with Oregon's pass catchers? You know, you've told me past couple weeks, Tej Johnson has been banged up. It's cleared the way for like Evan Stewart, guys like that. Is that something, low? Are we seeing these guys, or is it just like too many games, not enough upside?
Let me look. I actually didn't really check on them. I don't think I got much Gabriel, like quarterback. Oh, never mind. I got 12%. So, all right, let me search for low. I loved him. Somehow I got 0 of him.
Interesting.
On FanDuel, which is weird. FanDuel's so loose though. I think, at first glance, this was early in the week when I was just building a dummy. I'm like, oh, 5,900 for low. This could be something to look at. But as value just opened up and Frazier and stuff. Right now, Evan Stewart, 16%, Terrence Ferguson, 3.5. Yeah, that basically fills out every Gabriel lineup. So I'm not super exposed to Oregon as a team, but the little bit I have is Stewart and Ferguson. And that might be another reason why you don't get low. Like Ferguson projects right there. He's 100 more. He's definitely safer. An upside you could question.
On FanDuel, Jalen
Ferguson did you see Ferguson's targets last game?
No.
Let me pull this up. It was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. Have it right. He had 12 targets.
I think there's a war. You're not going to the game, are you?
No, I'm not going to the game.
I don't know.
I considered it, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, could have been part of something. This is a weird spot. I don't think I can do it though. If Wisconsin wasn't critically injured, maybe, but Jalen Noel or Wester on FanDuel.
Noel.
Yeah. Ba or Frazier? It would be Frazier for me.
Yes.
Is Hughes for Tulane a good play? He's a great play.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. We didn't talk. Are you getting any, I'm jumping around, but it's same game. You're not getting to any Horvath, are you?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think so. Corey Kiner, we didn't talk about him, and I would say it's certainly been exposed as everyone in the Big 12 has been exposed. None more than BYU, but that's another story for another time. Do you have any Kiner today?
I have a little bit of Kiner.
Okay.
I think this is kind of sneakier than the spread indicates. I'm surprised Iowa State is still favored by this much. They are so injured up front. They're on third stringers at linebacker. They lost one of their stud defensive tackles. I've actually been very surprised their backups have held up as well as they have this year. So I don't hate him. He's locked into a full-time workload for this team.
We got about 10 minutes left, and I do want to mention we'll take some questions, but it was just on the screen. The link is in chat. We've talked about these tools a ton. We're running the sims, the ownership, the projection, everything that we're using to power Stokastic, not just for college football, but for everything. It's available for you. And not only is it available, why not just get it for free? And what I'm referring to is the link in the description of this video. It takes you to a page that looks just like that graphic. And it's all our partners, from Underdog to DraftKings to Caesars to Sleeper to Bet365. You're probably on some of them, but I guarantee you're not on all of them. If there's a deal at one of these books that interests you, claim the offer on that landing page. You follow the instructions. You get the offer from them. You get a month of our core DFS package for any sport you want. So if you say, you know what, I don't have right now, it's not in the budget but I want to play NBA, use this and get the month. If you say, you know what, college football, I want to just lock my subscription up for the end of the year, use this, and it stacks. So if you do 2 or 3, you have 3 months to play with. You could do one sport each month. You could get 3 months of a sport. Best deal we ever offered. I'm super excited about it. It's been running. A lot of people have already taken advantage of it. And normally I say, then you can't. You can just keep taking advantage of it. Unlimited opportunities if you have books to claim. Again, you got to go through that link, but a really cool thing that we are doing. Let's see. We didn't talk about, you're not getting to any Ewers, are you?
I think I have 1%.
Okay, so nothing important. Yeah, Texas. I didn't bet that game, Mike, but I think I'd bet Texas if I had to. Arkansas has been a pain point all year.
They have. I bet them against UAB.
Yeah, that sums up a lot. Baylor wide receivers. Let's see what we can find here. Say you're living in the Sawyer Robertson world, and we need some receivers for the Bears. Hawkins probably cheapy.
Yeah, Hawkins is fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Trig,
I think Trig is fine.
Okay, let me ask you: would you rather play Trig or Helm?
Trig.
Really? Okay, they're both the same price.
I don't feel good about it, but yeah.
No, I don't feel good about anything I do. So that's not a prerequisite anymore for what I got going on. I'll throw one more. What about the cheapie for Arkansas, Luke Has, whatever this guy's name is?
People keep projecting him so high. He hasn't eclipsed 55% of the routes this year. Like, where are we getting the Haas projection? And in a game they're projected to get murdered, we think they're going to increase their tight end usage. This team is using 4 wide on 50% of their snaps offensively. Where are the Haas snaps coming from? I just have not been able to find an answer on this anywhere, but people keep projecting Haas like he's playing a full-time role. He's not. He's like a 50% player.
Yeah, I mean, he's running, it would seem quite hot on, he's got 9 catches in the last 2 games. 3 of them are touchdowns. That'll do it. Oh, are you playing any 4 running backs today? Or are you sticking with the more traditional format?
I don't think I am. I'd have to look.
I still think even though it is a really good running back slate, I still think ultimately you want 2 quarterbacks. Let's see. What else do we got? Thoughts on Cameron?
Josh Cameron for Baylor, he's fine.
Yeah, you have cheap Baylor options if you want them. Not that he's expensive, but of the bunch, he's probably the most expensive. Yeah,
I have no problem with him.
So, and I get this point. As a pass catcher, I'd rather have the guy on the team getting blown out than a guy on a team winning by 3 TDs. There's some truth to that, but the problem is in college football, like these teams, it's not like, oh, they'll just get garbage time. They might just only score like 10 points, 7 points, 3 points. So I worry about that on some of these blowout spots.
What was
how, like, as a pass catcher, I'd rather be on a trailing team that's forced to throw than on the team that's crushing them. And I get that mindset, but I think it's a little different in college football where teams simply just won't produce anything at times.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I would rather have the very high implied team totals.
Yeah. Like it's some of these teams.
Give me the wagon teams.
Yeah, like
I don't want
Purdue.
these to,
Purdue will
yeah,
be
what do
playing
you
catch
want?
up, but they won't score. Uh, yeah. Mario Williams thoughts?
He's fine. They just run a pretty nasty rotation there at wide receiver, but you can use him. I have no problem with him.
Let's see. Bond or Cameron?
Bond or Cameron? Bond.
Which Bond?
Isaiah Bond? Are you talking
I would,
Lewis Bond? That's
I would assume it's Isaiah Bond, but I don't know for
Lewis
sure.
Bond doesn't project poorly. I just don't think using him in a matchup with the guy who got beat out at FIU is that smart.
Or again, FIU, I actually think we'll get steamrolled today, but that's another story,
This guy
another time.
lost the starting quarterback job at FIU.
Yeah, it's
They
not a good.
decided to bench Castellanos for him, and then he hits the portal. Good job, Bill O'Brien. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's a far cry from when they were mopping up Florida State, and I thought uh good things, but that didn't age well. Um, we didn't talk a ton about LSU. We mentioned Durham briefly. Those wide receivers, they got Hilton back, and they've got a handful of them. Do you have a priority ranking? Is LSU factoring in? Are you getting to Nussmeier?
Not much Nussmeier. He just takes too many sacks. Kyron Lacey is okay if he's the stud you want to pay up for. Aaron Anderson, I think, is fine. The rest of it's pretty muddled by the return of Hilton and the guys you mentioned because of injuries.
Evan Stewart or Isaiah Bond?
Stewart.
Yeah. Thoughts on Washington for Baylor? Yeah, I think it's a different way to play that game. He's not my favorite running back, but he's out there. It's a very competitive spread. West Virginia has done stupid stuff all year, so wouldn't be stunned if they melt today at home. But yeah, I get it as a tournament play.
Me too. I think he's fine.
So how did it go? Was it on a level of like 0 to 10? Was it like triple bananas level anarchy behind the scenes, or you feel good about your lineups?
I only had to rerun The Sims once.
Okay, that's
I
not
think
bad.
it would have been really bad if I had to do it multiple times.
Not bad. You did well. I think we did well. Chad, I hope you guys think we did well. If you have any questions for us, at JazzRazBets, at Matt_Gajewski. Again, if you're in Discord, you can always hit us up there as well. But I think we're in pretty damn good shape.
Me too. My CSV is in. If you have last second
Yeah,
questions, throw them out there because I'm in a surprisingly good spot compared to normal.
Look at that. Thoughts on Wesco Jr.?
Hell yeah. I mean, these young players for Clemson and Texas are ascending. I think the locked in pass catchers there are the tight ends, but they're unexciting. Antonio Williams and Isaiah Bond, and everything else is up for grabs. So Wesco, I think you could definitely see him ascending. I like him and more for Clemson. They're both cheap too.
How much of a better play is Shepard with Horn out? Does that solidify him? Does it even matter?
They run four wide every single play, so he was already out there like every single snap. The biggest difference is now his target per route rate is much higher. Without Horn last game, 11 targets, season high for Shepard. You're just going to see more balls come his way without a target getter on the field.
Barney or Shepard?
Shepard for sure.
How much money are we betting on Cal State Bakersfield today? The Roadrunners. I saw them play North Dakota State very recently. I don't know. That's all I got for you. I don't know anything about that team, but I did watch that game. I don't even know who they play today. But maybe I will bet them. I already bet some bad basketball. Purdue handling business last night, by the way, in Mackey. Didn't see that coming.
What about Wisconsin scoring 100 points?
And then storming the court. Yeah, you should have been in the Kohl Center. What
Yeah,
happened?
Right. Marquette on the road beating Maryland. That's where it was at.
That was bad. That was just not useful for any situation. And Tyler Kolek got in for the Knicks last night, and he was chucking up threes like there was no tomorrow. Could you run Leonard naked?
Yeah, absolutely. I almost prefer it.
Thoughts on the Louisville stack? Yeah, I have no problem with that.
It's one of the best stacks on the slate with pricing factored in. Brooks is too cheap, and Chris Bell is 3,500 as the clear wide receiver too.
Hibner or DK?
DK.
Yeah. Thoughts on Dowdle?
Don't love it. They run 3 or 4 backs, and they're 7-point underdogs somehow to USC. I mean, USC does not have a good run defense, but I think the spread tells us more.
No, they don't. That game is just two teams that I don't think we need in life. We could just shrink by a couple teams. I'm tired of both of them. I thought they were going to be better, and they're not. Clemson run game or Clemson passing stack? Honestly, I hate to say both. You could really do either. I think Maffa is the more secure. He's going to be busy today.
I think Maffa is the safest way to play that.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, last question. Wesco or Daniels from SMU?
Daniels.
I think we did it, folks. We're about to hit lock. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like button on your way out. And again, take advantage of all the good stuff we have here at Stokastic. With the new year coming up, this is the best time. Thanksgiving, Christmas, all this stuff. Make sure you're locked in with the tools you need to be successful and be part of this community. For me, for Matt, Mike behind the glass, powering the show. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Good luck today. Let's make some money. And I'll see you next week.